4, and I'm pretty sure we're going to get some more information considering Missing Link is due to be out hopefully this year because the beta is going to happen this fall. So I hope you guys are ready to dive directly into the noise. Let's get it started. That's some good fifth dimensional juice. Now, to get you guys caught up, Dark World has only had 3 chapters so far, right? Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3. And we've learned a lot within those 3 chapters already. We know that Xehanort is in class with a couple of classmates. He has his classmates, Vaor, Ermod, Bragi, Ericus, Balder, and Erd. I'm missing one. And Erd, right? And a lot of those names come from Norse mythology. So we kind of have an idea of what can happen to certain characters, especially Balder, right? And their master is known as Master Odin. And if you guys are like, oh, why does he look like a wizard? Because, Odin actually went down to Earth and he wanted to cloak himself to look like, a traveler or a hermit or someone that you would expect to be, the god of gods, the king of the gods, or whatever. So, and then that indeed was inspiration for Gandalf from Lord of the Rings. So that's why it's like, oh, why does Master Odin look like Gandalf? It's because that's where it comes from, or whatnot. And from those 3 small episodes, and then I feel that we're probably going to get, like, the chapters, we'll probably end up getting 13 chapters, 10 chapters, 15 chapters, I don't know. From those chapters, we learned various interesting things when it comes to the lore of Kingdom Hearts, including that in order for a world to be restored from the nexus that is Scarlet at Hykariemr after, the Keyblade War, in order for a world to be restored, each of the worlds go by their own time, right? So their time flows differently for each world, and time flows differently for each world to, like, basically recoup itself, to reconstruct itself. That was incredibly massive, and it ties a lot of things together when it comes to how only a certain amount of years pass in certain worlds, adjacent to, like, what happens in the overall world of Kingdom Hearts. Like, let's say, Birth by Sleep, 10 years have passed, but in the Hercules world, only a few years have passed, because when Herc goes from, like, 0 to hero, not a lot of time has passed. I mean, some time did pass, but not a lot of time has passed, right? Definitely not 10 years, definitely not a decade plus, whatever. So it's really interesting to hear that each world has its own, I would say, clock that it marches forth on how it, flows and how it comes back from the void. That's one thing. The second thing is that Xehanort apparently has the eyes that is able to see the darkness, right? Of course, we see that other characters like Sora, Donald, Goofy, everyone is able to, like, they zoom in, they're like, and they're able to see darkness, right? But Xehanort is a very special case because he's able to see willful darknesses. He's able to see cognitive darknesses. He's able to see the darkness that more likely is influencing another person, especially how we saw with the Queen of Hearts in Wonderland, right? And that's a big deal. And a lot of people don't really put 2 and 2 together and stuff, because Nomura is a madman and he's playing 5D chess, and I'm out here with my knight and I'm trying to box in his bishop, and I'm like, I see it now. Remember the beginning of the Kingdom Hearts 3 intro where you see Xehanort, just like, like where you hear Face 5 Fears, dun dun dun. He's playing the chess master, looking up into the sky, and he sees that one purple little thing just flashing out in the distance, and he's like seeing it, and he's like, okay, my next move, right? What he's looking at, because he has the eyes that's able to see the darkness. What he's looking at, he's able to detect willful darknesses from he's able to detect willful darknesses from that distance. And a lot of people don't put 2 and 2 together. I'm like, Nomura was setting this up. Nomura was setting up Dark Road, Melody and Memory, Missing Link, all the way from Kingdom Hearts 3. Kingdom Hearts 3 is like, oh, all these unanswered questions, the ancient Keyblade legacy that dwells within you. Xehanort come into contact with the Master of Masters and Remind and whatnot. This is all part of the plan. Right? So Xehanort has the eyes that is able to see the darkness and probably is able to detect willful darknesses from distance, right? And that could be one thing that's very special about him, or that could be a power that's passed down to him from the player character. Not really a power, more like an experience. Can you imagine holding on to that painful experience that is the experience that led to your death in your life prior, right? The reason why the player character died is because, unfortunately, like, he goaded Hikariemr to kill them, right? Which, bro, Union Cross's ending went dummy good. So I hope Dark Road's ending goes dummy good, right? So imagine, like, one of the last things you know in your previous life is knowing what these willful darknesses look like, right? You're able to recognize that. So the player character was able to pass down their grief, their straight up malice, their hatred, their, you know, dying words, their dying thoughts, their dying experiences into Xehanort to know what willful darknesses look like, right? Because that's what led to his death. That's disgusting. So in that light, or darkness, however you want to see it, that's one thing. That's how Xehanort could have came to have that ability, because we all know that, you know, at this point, Xehanort is the reincarnation of the player character. Xehanort is us. That is us. We are Xehanort. We are the darkness. We are the future, right? So that's another thing that we learned from Dark Road. And another thing that we learned from Dark Road in the 3 chapters is that, of course, you know, Xehanort experienced something that, you know, no one should experience in their youth, is that 4 out of the 7 classmates, save for Ericus and save for 1 more, unfortunately perished some way, shape, or form. And it seems that Xehanort definitely blames himself for what happened, right? It could have been that they end up getting perished. They end up dying because Xehanort literally decided to go down a slippery slope, and he kept going after willful darknesses. And then unfortunately, some willful darknesses, especially the Deadly 7, may have inhibited his classmates. And then they probably had to make a very, very, very hard choice. Can you imagine Xehanort killing his friends in order to try and get rid of the deadly darknesses, right? But of course, I don't think it worked, because I truly believe that the deadly darknesses are still running around. The 13 progenitor darknesses and the 7 deadly darknesses within them, I still think they're running around. So Xehanort tried to shoot a shot, and it didn't work out, and then his friends had to pay the ultimate price. And that, ladies and gentlemen, may be the reason why, one of 2 ways, inversely or reversely, that may be the reason why the Master of Masters took interest in Xehanort in the first place, right? Master Masters, if you guys already know, in Union Cross, the Master of Masters' plan is to cultivate his disciples, you know, the Foretellers and Lucio, in order to be strong enough in order to be vessels to take on the willful darknesses, particularly the 7 deadly darknesses. And then they're able to destroy those darknesses as long as they are given form, right? And that's the way, like, if we get rid of the deadly 7, that's going to be a victory, right? It could be possible that the Master of Masters took interest in Xehanort because, one, he saw that Xehanort tried the same thing but failed. It's like, yo, homie tried the strat but didn't work, right? And then that will be an interesting way to echo Xehanort's own recklessness that we see in the future in Birth by Sleep, because Xehanort, it gets a little antsy when he tries to do a plan, right? But at the same time, he's like, okay, that didn't work. Let's try again. Let's try again. You know, in his eagerness, he did the incorrect way to make the Keyblade. And he's like, I acted rashly. I can admit that now. That could definitely echo something that he tried in as the youth. He's like, I tried to destroy the 7 deadly darknesses, but in the attempt ended in failure. It's like, I acted rashly. I admit that now. So Master of Masters literally could have approached Xehanort in that sense and was like, hey, listen, I saw what you tried there, and that was a good try, but that's not the way to do it, all right? And it could be possible that his classmates were not strong enough, right? And the darkness has probably overwhelmed them, and then by the time Xehanort tried to kill him, the darkness was able to escape them and then move on, so on and so forth, right? So that's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is that the Master of Masters could have gave him the idea in the first place, and then he tried it with his classmates, and then everything went south, right? And then that's probably why he got pushed. This is all probably why he got pushed to, try and find Kingdom Hearts in the first place. Because, like, even though Xehanort says, like, oh, I must have these answers, the answer, like, I feel a lot of people don't give Xehanort enough credit in terms of the curiosity killed the cat, or what he's trying to do with Kingdom Hearts, or what he was trying to do back in Dark Road. Dark Road can give us an easy answer on why he wanted Kingdom Hearts so badly. Because, I mean, like, answers for the sake of answers, I mean, sure, researchers, science, men of science that want to, like, I need to understand this because that knowledge needs to be known, right? But at the same time, Xehanort's mild ulterior motive, whatever, could have been that, hey, listen, I'm tired of a world that darkness is out here running around, and then I don't want other people to go through what I went through with my friends, right? But then, Xehanort's like, no, it's too dangerous. And then he's like, listen. Xehanort's like, I smoked all my other friends, I'll smoke you too. Right? But then he didn't do it. And then he ended up doing it, right? That's probably why Xehanort was so, like, calm about killing Ericus. Well, not really calm. I'm pretty sure that hurt. Like, when he killed Ericus, like, hey, listen. I had to take care of the rest. But all in all, when it comes to that idea, to, like, Xehanort possibly being responsible for his, classmate's death, I can definitely see that, because I feel like there was a ton of graves, and I mean, like, graves, the amount of graves we saw at Skull Column can easily account for everyone who's lived in Skull Column, through the beginning of time, right? But those were a lot of graves, and I feel that we're not only going to see Xehanort's class get smoked, but we're probably going to see Xehanort's upperclassmen get smoked. And that's another thing to think about when it comes to, like, Dark Road, and possibly what we hear from the end of Melody and Memory. Because remember when Yensid told Mickey, he's like, oh, you'll begin your search in Skyla ad Kylum, right? That can easily lead into Missing Link, or it could easily lead into Dark Road. And I feel it could have led into Dark Road, and that, the ending of Dark Road was coming a lot sooner until it was delayed, because Dark Road and Melody and Memory were all part of the same phase. They're all part of phase 2 of Kingdom Hearts. So in that idea, we might get some context in the ending of Dark Road to see how Skyla ad Kylum could possibly be like right now, because we have yet to see Skyla ad Kylum in its current, like in real time, because the Skyla ad Kylum we saw in Kingdom Hearts 3, that was Skyla ad Kylum from Xehanort's past, right? So that means we still have to, like, wait 75 odd years to see what it looks like now, right? And then Skyla ad Kylum from the days of the ending of Union Cross and the days of Missing Link, it looks completely different. In which I had a theory on Twitter that the locking effect that the Master Defender does for the Land of Departure in order to turn into Castle Oblivion, that technique probably originated in Skyla ad Kylum and was used to transform Skyla ad Kylum as we've seen it in the days of Brain, the days of Missing Link, to the days of Xehanort as we saw it in Kingdom Hearts 3, right? Which will make a ton of sense. And you would think, why did they decide to, convert it? What are they trying to hide? They're probably trying to hide a lot of secrets that we're probably going to learn in Missing Link when it comes to relating to the Lost Masters and how they constantly, like, I don't even know if it's constantly phasing between that of Quadratum and the real world, fiction and non-fiction, right? But back to Xehanort. We have so much to learn when it comes to Xehanort's own origin story, and, like, how he has been, I would say, how he has been cultivated into embracing the darkness. And I really hope that, the Master of Masters isn't too much of an influence over Xehanort, because I would feel that, like, oh, that makes Xehanort kind of a puppet character, and I'm like, I don't want Xehanort to be a puppet character. Like, I really like, him as a character, but I mean, at the same time, Lushu, Xigbar, Braig, whatever, kind of like, oh, I'll pretend to be an ally, but he's gonna be the one to try and reinitiate the Keyblade War. And I want to know, like, why exactly he tried to initiate the Keyblade War. And of course, we do see at one point in Dark Road, he's going to have the No Name and Ericus is going to have the Master Defender, right? To see that clash go throughout in real time is going to be very, very interesting. And I know one thing that you guys are apparently super hyped about, and I'm like, hey, listen, I don't know if we're going to see it or not. I know you guys are ready to see how exactly Xehanort got bald. And I'm like, I don't know if they're gonna actually reveal that, homies. Like, yeah, I feel that's like a joke for Nomura or whatever, because like it's probably gonna be a time jump. Or like I said, Xehanort probably doesn't go bald. And can you imagine like Xehanort going bald because of the darkness? Like, no. But I feel like Xehanort probably is gonna shave his head on purpose in order for him not to be recognized in the future. But it's gonna be interesting to see, like, if we're gonna get like any type of beginning, middle, and end to Dark Road's finale in terms of, like, you know, Xehanort leaving Skalagka and then becoming an adult and then going from an adult to an elderly adult and all that stuff. I really think, like, I really hope they do that because, as it's, like, claimed by Nomura in interviews and, what do you call them? In Ultimanians and whatnot, Ansem, the Seeker of Darkness, is what Xehanort looked like in his prime, in his 30s, in his like absolute prime. That's what Xehanort looked like. So like you take kid Xehanort, no, you take baby Xehanort, then you take toddler Xehanort, then you take kid Xehanort, then you take young Xehanort, and then you take Ansem, and then you take old man Xehanort. That's like how they like looked actually in their primes and whatnot. So like in that sense, I really want to see how Xehanort, you know, like, comes to terms with the darkness. Like he was brought up a certain way, and that's why I feel that like when people look at like the whole like teachings of Ventus, Terra, Aqua under Ericus, like I'm pretty sure that Odin, Master Odin, was like, oh, these like the worst emotions, you know, the 7 deadly sins, they attract the worst and worst of the darkness. Those kind of emotions attract the darkness, and then that's how they come to like those raw visceral emotions. Like Xehanort had an intimate understanding of the darkness and knew what it was about, right? And I want to know what made him like, hey, listen, you know, darkness may not be the wave, to like, hey, listen, darkness might be the wave. I want to know how he got from point A to point B, because, you know, the Masters definitely is like, oh yeah, if you find true strength, then you don't need a silly old coat to like, you know, protect you, because, you know, you'll be controlling the darkness instead, right? Obviously, like, I don't want to say that's where it all started, but I want to assume that, you know, maybe that's like the final nail on the coffin. You know what I mean? But you know what really hurt? You know, in like, I don't think I'm ready for Dark Road, because I don't know about you guys, but Union Cross, that ending hurt. That shit hurt like a bitch, right? So I don't know about y'all, but I don't know if I'm ready for Dark Road, because something tells me that if we're gonna be getting a lot of chapters, like, how do you guys feel about each chapter moving forward? Like, one friend bites the dust. Like chapter 4, bye-bye Bragi. Chapter 5, bye-bye Erd. Chapter 6, bye-bye Ermad. Chapter 7, bye-bye Veor. And then Baldur's just left. Man, just like, and I really want to know how they die. Like, but then, you know what's really interesting at the same time? We hardly know anything about the upperclassmen. All we know is that Baldur's older sister is part of the upperclassmen, and I want to assume that the other Keyblade wielders that we saw in the Dark Road finale teaser from the 20th anniversary event, I want to assume that those are the upperclassmen, and man, those designs look so cool, and I want to know what they're about, but at the same time, they're probably gonna die, because like Odin even said it himself at one point when Ericus, it seems like it was Ericus and Xehanort in the Realm of Darkness, and they were getting bodied by a willful darkness, apparently, right? And then Odin comes in and it's like, oh, so only you two remain. And I'm like, yo, listen, what's going on? People are dying, people are dropping like flies. I'm gonna need to know what's going on, right? Like, it's to the point where I'm pretty sure, like, okay, maybe, or just maybe, Skylight Hikariemr is or isn't deserted by this point in time in Kingdom Hearts, right? Because you would think of, like, if Skylight Hikariemr was still kind of thriving, or it was still, like, you know, if there are still people there, like, those Keyblade Warriors will come and help the Heartless situation. Because that was a big deal in the lore of Kingdom Hearts, where, like, the Heartless got unleashed during Xehanort's experiments, like as Apprentice Xehanort, how he created those machines that like replicated Heartless, and that he unleashed a shitload of Heartless into the world. That was a big deal, right? So you would think that, like, hey, Skylight Hikariemr should, like, if they had Keyblade wielders, they would be dispatched to, like, deal with the problem, but they didn't. So that makes you think that right now it's deserted, right? That's one thing. But then the other thing is that Vanitas, when he created the Keyblade, at the end of Breath by Sleep, he was like, oh, this key shall open a door, and then from that door, Keyblade fucking warriors shall come from each and every world, and just like the legend said, the Keyblade war will begin, right? And then Aqua was like, shut up, right? So, like, how much weight do those words have? Because if you think about it, right, Vanitas more than likely is a Wolf of Darkness, or got spawned from a Wolf of Darkness, right? There was a Wolf of Darkness, and it got ingested in Vane, and then Vane's like, oh, I'm a pure light, I'm going after the darkness, there's only one way. He absorbed it, and then that's one that's like, yo, if we kill Vane, then we can destroy darkness, right? But then Vanitas showed up. If Vanitas is a Wolf of Darkness, I don't know if he's one of the Deadly Darkness. Can you imagine if he's not a Deadly Darkness, and then, like, you know, he's that strong and he's not even one of the Deadly Seven? So, as we know from, see, this is how it's all interconnected, right? From Dark Road, we know that the darkness is attracted to the rawest, purest emotions, especially emotions that are brought from war, hatred, bloodlust, anger, fear of death, you know, all that stuff, right? And then the Master of Masters even said that at the end of Union Cross. It's like, oh, the whole reason why I did the Keyblade War was to, like, was to literally bring out, like, you know, the Wolf of Darknesses from hiding, because that amount of emotion that goes on during a war is what attracts the Wolf of Darknesses the most, right? So that's like, oh, that's why the Keyblade War happened. And then Master Odin went into detail into that for Dark Road. And if Vanitas was a willful darkness, the reason why he was so happy and he was smiling was not because he was trying to fulfill some sort of prophecy that Xehanort gave him. People were like, oh, Vanitas was so happy because he's actually he's completing his role. No, Vanitas was probably happy because he knew that if a shitload of people came out and fought over again, like the Keyblade War, then his brothers and sisters, the Wolf of Darknesses, his siblings, his literal family, would come back and reunite with him. That's why he was happy. He was like, the Keyblade War is gonna begin. I'm gonna see my family again, right? That's probably why he was happy, right? Jeez. But all in all, with that idea of, like, the Wolf of Darknesses, and, you know, how they could definitely play a role, because that's something that definitely spilled over, because, like, you know, it's called Union Cross Dark Road. We call it Kingdom Hearts Dark Road, but the whole app is Union Cross Dark Road, right? Because the app has two games, Union Cross and Dark Road, but they're still separate, Kingdom Hearts Union Cross and Kingdom Hearts Dark Road, right? But a lot from Union Cross spills over into Dark Road for, you know, for good reason, right? And in that sense, I'm glad they're elaborating more on the willful darknesses, the cognitive darknesses. These darknesses are able to think, plan, act, and whatnot, and that they're not able to be understood by regular human conventions, whatever. I'm liking that. But then, if you guys didn't see, in the Kingdom Hearts Union Cross Dark Road finale promotional image that was released on the Japanese Twitter account, there was two scenes where it showed like Xehanort meeting with Ericus, and then there was probably like him giving Ventus to Ericus to train and whatnot after, like, he split him into Vanitas. But then afterwards, you see Xehanort talked to Vanitas, and he's explaining something like a concept known as the progenitor darknesses. That darkness itself originated from 13 darknesses, right? And that's where the whole idea of 13 comes from, right? You know, the 13 secrets of darkness, the 13 darknesses, the 13 or progenitor darknesses, the 13 willful darkness, and the 7 deadly within the 13 and whatnot. It all comes from that. It's currently unknown. It's currently unknown if the willful darknesses and the willful darknesses and the progenitor darknesses are one and the same. But I like to assume so. However, it could be possible that the progenitor darknesses could predate that of the willful darknesses itself, or be a primordial form of that in which they evolved into the willful darknesses. And the reason why I say that is because remember what the Master of Masters said. The Master of Masters said that he's been around for a very, very long time, and the Keyblade War has been going on for an extremely long time, ever since he was a boy, you know, before Keyblades, before Light and Darkness and all that good jazz. And back during his days when he was a kid, darknesses looked like you and me. Like they didn't look like monsters. They didn't look like ethereal beings. Back in the day, you know, darknesses looked like you could not distinguish a darkness from a light, or a darkness from a person from the days of, you know, of the Master of Masters. So it could be possible that the progenitor darknesses could have originated from the time of the Master of Masters' childhood, right? And then the progenitor darknesses either gave birth to darkness itself, to the cognitive darknesses, to the willful darknesses, or the progenitor darknesses were human-like until they evolved into pure darknesses, right? Until they decide to shed off whatever shred of humanity they may have had. That's how they became that. Because the Master of Masters does converse with one of the willful darknesses, and they're like, oh, we've known each other for how long? It's like, oh, I'm kind of tired of this noise. It's like, yo, it's been way too long. I want to go to sleep, man. I just want to go to sleep. We've been doing this song and dance for way too damn long, right? So it could be possible that, you know, a progenitor darkness could have been very human-like, and they shed their human, you know, their humanity, they shed their skin, they shed their shells or whatever, and they become one, truly one with the darkness. And then that's how a progenitor darkness became willful darkness. And since willful darkness doesn't have form, then willful darkness is able to spread and create more darkness, and possibly infect more humans with darkness and more beings with darkness. And then that's how darkness came into being. But then that's the whole idea, is like, in the beginning, there was only darkness. Like what do you call them? Like, before the world began, like, it was just nothing but darkness, right? And from that darkness came light, and from the light came the people, and the people had hearts, right? So then, if the progenitor darknesses is the source of all darkness, then how was humanity, like, what was humanity before all that, if we're going off the timeline of, you know, how life and light came to be in Kingdom Hearts, right? And the reason why I'm going off this rail completely is because I feel that we might get the answers to this in Dark Road, right? And, like, it could be one of those Sephiroth type things where, like, oh, the truth will set you free. Like, Xehanort might learn the truth, like, the complete truth on how darkness was, like, you know, how darkness originated, at least from people or whatever. And then that could make him realize, like, hey, listen, maybe the darkness isn't that bad. Hey, listen, maybe the darkness doesn't deserve, you know, the bad rap it gets. Maybe we can do something about it. Maybe if I were to find Kingdom Hearts, I can find the truth of light, because this truth of darkness does not add up, right? And that's the thing. Maybe to Xehanort, it didn't add up. And maybe that's why he went to go find Kingdom Hearts, because, like, that's the answer he needed. The answer he needed is just like, yo, like, how did darkness come into being? How did light come into being? Because if darkness came from progenitor darknesses, and if darkness is how the world began, you know, like, everything came from darkness, and from the darkness came light, and if from light came the people, then what people, like, existed before light, right? Because that timeline does not add up, especially considering that, you know, willful darknesses came from progenitor darknesses, or darkness itself came from progenitor darknesses, and that according to the Master of Masters, darkness at one point during his childhood in the vast past looked like humans, right? So what was it first, right? The reason why I bring up the Sephiroth situation is because, remember, in Final Fantasy VII, Sephiroth was like going through it a little bit, and he's all like, you know what? Nah, I'm Shinra's prize puppet. You know, we're gonna go to Nibelheim. We're gonna sock it to him. We're gonna solve everything. And then he read a book, and that book sent him off the rails, right? That book completely broke him and changed him for the worst, right? Or for the better, however you want to look at it, right? So that's why I'm like, what if Xehanort goes through his own, like, Sephiroth situation, in which he learned something, and he's like, okay, enough is enough. We need to find Kingdom Hearts. I'm tired of this. There's not enough information, right? And I'm pretty sure whatever truth that might be could be horrifying, right? Because in the promo video, someone who we think is an upperclassman talks to Master Odin, right? It's like, hey, listen, he says something, right? And Master Odin's like, don't look into Kingdom Hearts. That's forbidden. Don't do it. Don't do it. Focus on the darkness instead, right? Focus on learning about the darkness instead, but don't look at Kingdom Hearts though, right? And then that's probably why the Master of Masters was like, oh, summoning Kingdom Hearts is forbidden, right? And Gulu's all like, yo, listen, we need to summon Kingdom Hearts, right? I'm tired of this. Like, I'm battered, I'm bruised. Like, literally, I said, beat the ever-living daylights out of me. We need to summon Kingdom Hearts. Ava, I need some Lux. Help me out, homie, right? And then she's like, nah, all right? So that literally, like, I feel the big draw to Kingdom Hearts right now, because we still don't even know what Kingdom Hearts really is. All we know is that it's from an unseen land that gave the gift of light to the entire world that people coveted over and fought over, and that was led to the Keyblade War, blah, 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 and that Kingdom Hearts itself, like, has untold knowledge, right? And then I'm pretty sure that Kingdom Hearts itself probably, like, has recorded everything from the beginning of time, and that, like, its essence, its nature would unlock understanding of how the world works and how every single heart works and how the concept of light and darkness works, right? But someone or some people, like some grand council, you know, the Master of Masters, Master Odin, some people within a group, Illuminatus, right, Incognitus, knows that, hey, listen, this truth that Kingdom Hearts holds, it cannot get out, right? It cannot get out, please, right? And Xehanort's like, it needs to get out. It's time for it to get out, right? So I feel like the Master of Masters and possibly Odin, I feel Odin may have an idea, but the Master of Masters definitely knows what's up, and he's like, hey, listen, nah, like, if people knew this shit, then it ain't gonna be right. It ain't gonna be right, right? Now, there's one big revelation that we learn about Kingdom Hearts when it comes to Xehanort's own case, and that's probably why he has such a big desire and connection to Kingdom Hearts. And this is something that I feel like how many people go through this and how many people truly understand this, is that it's heavily implied at the end of Union Cross, especially when, you know that where do all hearts go, ladies and gentlemen? When hearts die and they're ready to die, if they don't get stuck in the final world, all hearts return. Where all hearts return, they return to Kingdom Hearts. But thanks to the ending of Union Cross, is heavily implied that if you don't want to straight up perish, or you don't want to go to sleep, or you don't want to become a Dream Eater or whatever, apparently you have the choice to have your heart rewritten and blend and become that of another person's heart, right? The player character becomes Xehanort. And this process is heavily implied to be that your heart returns to Kingdom Hearts in order to be rewritten and rebranded and remolded and to be redone as a new heart, right? Because all hearts return to Kingdom Hearts, and then Kingdom Hearts, and then hearts come from Kingdom Hearts in order to, you know, inhibit a newborn baby, right? So that's probably what goes down. That your heart, when you die, goes back to Kingdom Hearts, gets rewritten, gets reincarnated into another person, and then your heart comes back. Your heart comes back to be born again into a new person, right? And that is probably one big reason why Xehanort is so enamored with the concept of Kingdom Hearts, because deep down he knows that, like, oh, I've went through this process before, because he has the memories of the player character, right? And in that sense, you know, I would want to know, like, this whole process, like, you know, the point of this whole process, or how this comes to be, or why the world is how it is. And, you know, that's probably why Ericus tried to stop him. Like, Ericus tried to stop him in, what do you call it? In, Dark Road. Ericus tried to stop him in Birth by Sleep. And the reason why tried to stop him is because at both times Xehanort brought up Kingdom Hearts. I need to find Kingdom Hearts. And the way to get Kingdom Hearts is the Keyblade War, the Keyblade. Kingdom Hearts will show up. I'll unlock it, and then I'll find out the answers, right? And Ericus probably knows something from Master Odin that Xehanort doesn't know, and then that Odin didn't want Xehanort to know, right? Because as Ericus says, oh, you're entitled to certain knowledge. And is that knowledge like a pool that is, you know, spread among every master in Kingdom Hearts? Maybe, maybe not. Because, like, you know, there are some things that certain masters know about, and there's some things that other masters don't know about, right? Xehanort, even as a kid, even as, like, Xehanort, as young Xehanort, knew what the power of waking was, right? And Sora, Mickey, Riku, Yensid all had to figure that shit out, right? Did Ericus know what the power of waking was? Maybe. And then Ventus also knew what the power of waking was. And, you know, Ventus is from the time of Unicross, right? So that's, like, all of the type of shit, like, oh, this master knows this master knows that, right? And I feel like it's all part of, like, some sort of conspiracy, or all part of a plan that, like, masters of old, like, pick and chose certain pieces of, like, grand world-ending knowledge in order to splice up among themselves. It's like, okay, so your faction, you're going to be in charge of passing this down. Your faction, you're going to be in charge of passing this down. And your faction, you're going to be in charge of passing this down, right? In that sense, Xehanort was probably tired of that. Xehanort probably is going to figure something like that out in Dark Road, and he's going to be tired of that, and then he's going to be like, okay, listen, nah, like, if I can't get answers here, I'm going to get them somewhere else, right? Mm-hmm. Mm. But in that sense, how much does Xehanort know? Like, from every piece of, like, Kingdom Hearts promotional material and whatnot, when it comes to, like, oh, Master Xehanort, Master Xehanort, Master Xehanort, they keep on saying that Master Xehanort is the most powerful Keyblade Master in history, right? And I feel the addendum to that should be the most powerful Keyblade Master in recorded history, because I want to assume that the Master of Masters, Luciu, and the Fortas, I'm pretty sure all of them could bibbity bob Xehanort. Like, they could blink and he's gone, right? I want to assume that as much. So, like, Xehanort was able to get that powerful from seeking out darkness, from seeking out all this knowledge, from seeking out everything he wanted to know that, you know, people in Skull.com or Land of Departure would not tell him, right? And I want to see that evolution of this character and see how much this character really was on about when it comes to knowing what's up. And Dark Road is definitely already going down that path, or I should say it's already going down that road, because Xehanort knew, like, Xehanort was the one who had to, like, break it down for his classmates about how worlds, when they, you know, get restored, when they come back from the spring of Skull.com, he's the one who broke it down. It's like, hey, listen, all worlds have their own, you know, timeline. They have their own sense of time flow and whatnot. And all of his classmates look to him. Like, it's hilarious. All of his classmates look to him. how does a character that was so beloved by his friends, he grew up with, I assume, a loving caretaker. He grew up among loving friends. He had to lose them, and that would surely break somebody, right? And he was literally touted as like the paragon of his, of his classmates, right? Among his classmates, right? Like even better than Ericus, and Ericus was like even primed to like, oh, when the world needs a defender, they're gonna pick you, Ericus, right? And because Xehanort's not about that life. Xehanort's probably like leagues ahead of Ericus in terms of strength, in terms of knowledge, in terms of willing to risk it for the biscuit and whatnot. But I feel that Ericus was definitely like the safe choice to make, him a defender, make him the world's defender, and give him the Master's Defender. But I wonder if Xehanort's actually gonna take No Name like the hard way. What do you guys think? Do you guys think he's just like, hey, listen, No Name, yeah, that's coming with me, man. With the idea that Xehanort is gonna go through this evolution through Dark Road, being such a beloved character, being such a like a kid with a very like loving home, and was able to risk everything in order to take the first step through that dark corridor. Which, by the way, Ansem was the one who like summoned that for him. So that's another like thing we have to look at and whatnot. Is like, oh, Ansem is the reason why Xehanort is at Skull Kylum, right? We have to think about that. And we have to think about the whole lineage. This is dipping a little bit into Missing Link, but I'm pretty sure like Missing Link and Dark Road, all of those games, the Key Saga, they all deal with Daybreak Town / Skull Kylum. So if we're talking about a game that has to deal with either Daybreak Town or Skull Kylum, it's all fair game. But this, Dark Road, I feel is going to prime up Missing Link, by a lot, right? But anyways, in Missing Link, from what Nomura states, is that Missing Link will really drive it home that there are two lineages of people coming out of Skull Kylum in order to populate the rest of the world. And that is, the direct bloodline descendants of those who wield Keyblades or are destined for Keyblades, aka Ephemer's bloodline, and those who are not part of the bloodline, right? That, the best way I could surmise that is that those are a part of the bloodline. I have a video on this coming out soon, so check that out. Also, I got a big video on the black box. It's going to be good. Oh, indoor plumbing, it's going to be big. Those within the bloodline are always destined to have a Keyblade. They're going to get one. As long as you're part of the bloodline, you're going to get a Keyblade, right? It doesn't matter what you do, or it doesn't matter what you go. Destiny will always find a way to bring a Keyblade to your hands, right? That's one idea. Those that are not part of the bloodline can still be Keyblade wielders, but they have to earn it, or they have to find it, or have to get it themselves. All right. A big idea, case in point, people that are part of the bloodline of Ephemer and his his web of descendants, whatever. Ephemer. Brain is descended from if you're descended from a person from Union Cross, then you are gonna get a Keyblade, right? That's basically case in point, right? So Brain, Ericus. Ephemer, probably Xehanort, and I'm talking about to the point of Xehanort, there are so many bloodlines and stuff like that. So I mean way distant cousin, whatever. Xehanort, Riku, Terra, Aqua, what do you call it? Ventus came from the time, so he doesn't count. What do you call it? Veor, Balder, all those people within Skull Kylum, bam, the bloodline goes all over the place, right? The only two people, Kairi, the only two people that I feel is not within the bloodline, in which they had to, actually three. The only three people that I feel that are not within the bloodline, four. The only three. The only three people that I feel is not within the bloodline that had to earn a Keyblade themselves, Sora, Axel, Mickey. Right? Sora, Axel, and Mickey. Those are the only three that like they were not destined to get a Keyblade off rip. They had to go through the loops in order to get one themselves, right? So yeah, like Riku was always destined for a Keyblade. Like the reason why is like, oh, Terra was always destined to meet Riku. Terra was always destined to like bequeath a Keyblade to Riku, so he's a bloodline, because like, you know, destiny is drawn to each other or whatever. But then when Riku was set to earn his Keyblade, you know what? I'm gonna fall to the darkness, and I'm gonna like roll with this a little bit. And then Sora's like, Riku, don't do it! And then he was able to get Riku the Kingdom Key, because if you guys still don't know, the Kingdom Key was meant for Riku, right? He was able to get the Kingdom Key, and then Riku took it back for a while, but then Sora's all like, nah, that's mine. And then Kingdom Key's like, yeah, I'm gonna stick with Sora, right? And then Riku still got a Keyblade anyways, because part of the bloodline, right? Axel, he got a Keyblade. He was never meant to get a Keyblade. He apparently had to train rigorously in order to summon it. He's like, and then, hey, yo, it worked. And then Jensen's like, yo, like everyone was like, hey, yo, and like literally Jensen got up from his chair. Jensen never gets up from his chair, right? He stands up, but he never gets up from his chair. He's just like, right? And then Mickey, because like, yeah, like Mickey's gonna definitely descend from a human. M-I-C-K-E-Y! No. Oh, God. Oh, God. But in the case in point for Sora, it's obviously, it's very obvious that he's not part of the bloodline, because his whole idea, the whole point of his character, his whole idea is that he is meant to be an ordinary boy, the most dull ordinary boy, a Keyblade wielder unlike any I've ever seen, right? And that is like a beautiful message saying that you can come from nothing, you can come from nowhere, you can come from nothing, be an ordinary boy, and still achieve greatness, and still be chosen by greatness, and still be able to accomplish great things, especially when you have the power and help from your friends, right? Beautiful message, right? That's why Sora doesn't need to become a master. That's why Sora doesn't need to come from like any type of speciality when it comes to being the master of masters, like son, or being the master of masters, you know, other self, or a clone, or a nobody, or blah 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 blah. That's not the point. The point is Sora's supposed to be that ordinary boy that's able to do all these things despite being ordinary, right? Beautiful message, never changed, right? Riku, on the other hand, Riku is meant to be the foil to that. Riku is meant to be the one that was always meant to be better than Sora, right? He was always meant to be better than Sora. Like he's faster, stronger, more muscular, older, more charismatic, more of a leader, and then blah 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 blah. He was chosen. He is probably from Ephraim's family. He is the bloodline. He's the blue blood. But despite having everything going for him, Sora still showed him up, and that's like, you know, that's a pretty good message, right? And then Riku went on his redemption arc, which was amazing. So yeah, and the reason why I'm talking about that, you know, that foil, that antithesis, that contrast to Sora's character, is that Xehanort 2 is a contrast to Sora's character, right? Xehanort came, even though Xehanort spent time in Destiny Islands. One thing I actually don't like about Xehanort's backstory from Union Cross Dark Road, something I really I didn't like, but I mean, like, whatever, I roll with it, right? Is that it turns out Xehanort actually isn't from Destiny Islands, right? He was actually born in Scarlet Kylam, but then grew up in Destiny Islands. So I'm like, but I loved the whole idea that, like, oh, Sora and Xehanort are from the same place, right? But I mean, like, he grew up there, he was a baby, so I mean, like, I guess it still counts, whatever. Xehanort, it was meant to be that big antithesis to Sora, right? You know, Xehanort embraces the darkness, yet still had friends. Sora embraced the light, had friends. Both grew up in Destiny Islands, right? Sora winged it for most of the time. Xehanort was a blue blood, sort of, maybe blue blood, maybe not, maybe whatever. Xehanort had a lot of things going for him, very knowledgeable, very charismatic and whatnot. And they both, like, it's so weird to think about. They both knew the grand warmth of friendship and those and knew how people adored them individually, right? But for Sora, you know, things went very right. Things went a lot more right for him, right? While for Xehanort, things went a lot more wrong for him, right? And Kingdom Hearts 3 was a good way to, I guess, give Sora that glimpse into utter despair. Like, seeing all of his friends die right in front of him. That's something that Xehanort went through. Or I feel that Xehanort's going to go through in Dark Road, right? And, of course, Sora was able to reverse that. But the trauma still stays, right? And I feel that trauma is what led to Sora, you know, reminding, Kingdom Hearts 3 reminding Xehanort how to smile again, right? Because that's like, and then people complain about that so much at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind. I'm like, guys, were you really missing the point, like, of Kingdom Hearts, of Xehanort's goals? Like, yeah, I understand, Xehanort did a lot of shitty things, right? And, like, he caused a lot of despair. But, like, and I'm not saying the ends justify the means, but he had a reason for that, and he came from a place of understanding. But people like, no, Xehanort bad, right? There's no nuance in that. There's no grayness to that. It's either black or white, right? But that's, like, the big thing that I feel Dark Road is going to really establish once again within people's minds, especially since, like, oh, wow, I can't believe Dark Roads make me feel sorry for Xehanort, blah, blah, blah. Sora going through something similar that Xehanort went through, and despite that, was still able to smile and remind Xehanort how to smile again at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3. And then, you know, that led to, like, very well done, right? It's like, oh, you remind me of an old friend, right? Especially when Ericus went on his shoulder, it's like, enough, checkmate. And then, like, thanks to Sora and Ericus, Xehanort remembered all of that. It's like, that doesn't mean I won't be there for you. That doesn't mean, right? But that doesn't mean that I can't be there for you, right? Like, he'll always be there for Ericus, right? And then when he opened his eyes again, he remembered the good times when he was younger with Ericus, in Scarlet Con, with his friends, with his classmates. He remembered what it was. He remembered his old self. He remembered what, like, his original, you know, sense of self was. He smiled and he gave up. He tipped his hat, gave up in stride. And I'm like, that's the best way for Xehanort going out. But the people are like, oh, nah, man, I really wanted to see Xehanort's head to get cut off. I'm like, bro, Xehanort got away with it. It's like, no, he didn't. He died. What price does Xehanort pay? The ultimate price. He died. Bro. That part really gets me out, right? So, like, understanding the sorrow and tragedy of Xehanort is, like, going to be a big thing, a big deal, a big, I would say, perspective for you guys to understand and absorb properly the flow of Dark Road, right? We're going to learn so much about Xehanort's character, but beyond that of Xehanort's character, we're probably going to learn a lot about the worlds, the nature of Kingdom Hearts, the nature of the world, how it is now, and, of course, the nature, a little bit, not too much, don't spoil too much now, the nature of Quadratum, and, of course, more on the idea of the progenitor darknesses. Because despite ending, like, we've been here through 20 years, ladies and gentlemen, and what a ride it's been, right? But despite going throughout the entirety of the Dark Seeker saga, you know, there are still many mysteries that elude us when it comes to the concept of light, the concept of darkness, the concept of the in-between, Kingdom Hearts itself, and now the new mysteries of unreality, fiction, Quadratum, and of course, how everything is tied together when it comes to the Master of Masters, the origin of darkness, and don't forget about the 7 crowns, because that's something we're probably gonna learn about. Oh man, we might learn about the 7 crowns! Yo! Because I feel, as the final thought, I feel that a lot of things that we learned about in Union Cross towards the end, a lot of things we learned about towards the end of Union Cross is probably gonna get fleshed out in Dark Road, right? Willful darknesses, the 7 crowns, the true dandelion, the world of blank, the world of the reference mark, the world of the asterisk, the world of blank, the world of fiction, the world of unreality. We're probably gonna learn more about that. We're probably gonna learn more about the about context to the origins of Skull Column. That's gonna lead and bleed into Missing Link, which is, you know, set to come out this year, which I'm gonna be really, really excited for. That's honestly some, guys. I am so excited to play Missing Link, and I'm so excited to play Missing Link with y'all because I miss those days of us playing Union Cross. That was some fun. That was some fun times. I really do miss those times, right? But that's one thing we have to think about when it comes to the 7 crowns, the 7 deadly darknesses, and possibly maybe the 7 crowns is what's needed to control and not die from the 7 deadly darknesses. If those that wield the crowns are able to absorb the darknesses, maybe they'll come out fine. But we'll have to wait and see when it comes to the finale of Kingdom Hearts Dark Road. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of The Fifth Dimension. It's been really, really fun. Dark Road is happening at the end, not the end of the week, but next week, Friday. We still don't have a timing. We're probably going to get a timing very soon, but I hope you guys are ready for that. And you guys already know that we're going to be streaming it. We're going to be reacting to it. We're going to be making videos on it. It's going to be good. It's going to be grand. I hope you guys are ready for that wild, wild road. So until the next stream, strap on in for the safety of Hive and dive directly into the darkness. Now, before I toss it out to the wind, the Fifth Dimension is not only a podcast, a show that I'm starting to do every week now. It's also a Twitch team that I run. So let's go ahead and see who is currently streaming from the Fifth Dimension. And let's show them our love. All right, we got quite a number of streamers. All right, let's see. We are gonna go ahead and we're gonna go ahead and rate Typo of Dreams when it comes to the Lost in a Dream D&D campaign. If you guys like Dungeons and Dragons, it's gonna be good. All right, so let's go ahead and raid Typo of Dreams. By the way, if you guys have never played Dungeons and Dragons, it's a really, really fun game. But man, it takes a minute. It takes a whole minute to set up. So let's go out and give Typo of Dreams our love. And of course, I will see you guys tomorrow for the next stream, and the day after that, and the day after that. So until the next one, this has been HMK, and remember to be brave, dive deep, and enter the Fifth Dimension. I'll check you guys later.